After divorce, I became a principal. The cool air from the air conditioner brushed against my neck as my cousin Lillian and I lay on the sofa scrolling through TikTok. The funny clips had us laughing uncontrollably when suddenly a white figure darted over from the patio, so fast it looked like a ghost, making me drop my phone with a thud on the carpet. "Oh my God!" Lillian screamed, scrambling behind me. My hair stood on end too, but when I got a clear look, I nearly choked. It was my mother-in-law Martha, standing stark naked in front of the patio clothesline. Topless, and below, she was actually wearing my pink lace panties. "Aunt Martha!" I jumped up abruptly, rushing to close the patio awning, my fingers trembling. "Why did you run outside without clothes after taking a shower? The opposite neighborhood is full of neighbors. What would people think if they saw you like this?" As the awning closed, I caught a glimpse of lit windows in the houses across the street, my heart pounding in my throat. But my mother-in-law looked completely unconcerned, even shooting me a disdainful glance as if I was making a mountain out of a molehill. Ever since she forced her way to Boise to stay with her son half a month ago, our patio awning had never been fully opened. She loved wandering around the house in just her panties after showers, sometimes even mopping the floor or cooking topless in the living room. She said that's how it was in rural Idaho, cool and comfortable. Suppressing my discomfort, I pointed at the panties on her. "Aunt Martha, those are my panties. How could you wear my intimate clothing? Speak up." "I'm not deaf." She cupped her ear, pretending not to hear, yet her voice was louder than mine. I had to raise my voice, repeating word by word, "These are my panties. Please take them off." She rolled her eyes, glancing at my open bedroom closet with a sneer. "Haven't I worn every pair of your panties? Is there any need to make such a fuss? You've been in the city too long, getting more and more delicate." "What did you say?" I was struck dumb, my blood almost freezing. "You've worn all my panties. I always kept my underwear in a separate drawer in my bedroom, hanging them to dry on the private patio. Even Ethan never touched them." Now I finally understood why I'd been missing several pairs lately. While I was at work, she'd been sneaking into my bedroom, rummaging through my things, and treating my intimate clothes as her own. I was raised with strict upbringing. My parents would knock before entering my room, let alone wear my undergarments. This overstepping behavior made me physically sick, my stomach churning violently. "Why can't I wear them?" My mother-in-law tugged at the edge of the panties, looking indifferent. "They're a bit tight, but they'll stretch out and be comfortable after a few wears." Back in rural Idaho, my grandma and I shared clothes and pants all the time, and no one ever got sick. "They're my intimate clothing. Don't you understand hygiene?" Anger made my voice tremble, unable to control the volume. "What's all the commotion about? What's going on?" Ethan's voice came from the hallway. He'd just gotten home from work and rushed in at the noise. When he saw the scene in the living room, he froze instantly, my mother-in-law topless, me standing there with a livid face, the atmosphere tense enough to cut with a knife. "Ella, did you make a mistake?" Ethan avoided eye contact with his mother, looking evasive. "How could Mom be wearing your panties? It must be a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" I laughed angrily, reaching out to yank the panties off her. "See for yourself. She's wearing mine. She even admitted it." Ethan followed my hand, his face turning bright red as he quickly looked away, whispering a reminder, "Mom, I've told you so many times, you need to wear clothes in Boise. How did you forget again?" "Forget? I think you've forgotten your mother since marrying your wife." My mother-in-law suddenly pushed my hand away, glaring fiercely at Ethan with a shrill voice. "You always listened to me when you were little, and now you're scolding me over such a trivial matter. What's wrong with me wearing a few pairs of her panties? She eats my food, lives in my house, spends my son's money. Wearing a couple of her panties is making her feel wronged." Ethan was a Phoenix man from rural Idaho. He got into Boise State University on a scholarship, and after graduation, started a business with his senior. Now he's a manager at a small tech company. We met through his senior, dated for 2 years, then got married and took out a loan to buy a single-family house with a patio in Boise. I only met my mother-in-law once before marriage, at the country wedding. I remembered her as strong-willed but polite. After marriage, she repeatedly offered to come to Boise to take care of her son, but we politely declined. Unexpectedly, she left without telling us, bought a Greyhound bus ticket on her own, and only called Ethan when she arrived at the station. Ethan was soft-hearted, so he had to pick her up, saying she could stay for a few days before sending her back. Thinking we'd just gotten married and not wanting to make things too tense, I agreed. But over the past half-month, her bizarre habits have made my life miserable, walking around naked after showers, covering all electrical appliances with dust covers, forbidding takeout, saying it's expensive and unhealthy, demanding $1,500 monthly for living expenses, and now, stealing my panties. Mom, if you didn't bring any panties, you could buy some at Costco. Why wear Ella's? It's so unsanitary. Seeing my livid face, Ethan finally criticized his mother symbolically. Sanitary? Washing with water kills all bacteria. My mother-in-law raised her chin in defiance. I checked the supermarket at the community gate. One pair of panties costs dozens of dollars, but only 5 in the countryside. Isn't this a waste of money? Ella has so many panties, what's wrong with me wearing a few? Stretching them out will make them more comfortable for her too. Hearing this, I felt like ants were crawling all over my body, nausea surging up my throat. I turned around and rushed into the bedroom, grabbed a pair of scissors from the dresser drawer, then pulled out the entire underwear storage box. In front of my mother-in-law and Ethan, I cut all the panties inside into pieces with a snip-snip sound. Lace, cotton, seamless, all the panties I'd carefully chosen were now scattered on the floor in fragments, just like my trampled bottom line. Are you crazy? My mother-in-law screamed. I picked up the box full of scraps, walked up to her, and slammed it at her feet. I don't want these ones you've worn. Take off the pair you're wearing right now and throw it away too. Ethan quickly pulled his mother back as she tried to pounce on me, winking at her. I snatched Ethan's phone, opened the Victoria's Secret mini program for the downtown Boise store, and ordered 10 pairs of imported cotton panties in one go, each over $200. I shoved the order page in front of my mother-in-law's eyes. Mom, some money can't be saved. Your behavior today, let your son pay for it. I stuffed the phone back into Ethan's hand, warning him coldly, Aunt Martha, from today on, you are not allowed to enter my bedroom. It's my private space. If I catch you touching my things again, don't blame me for being rude. With that, I turned and walked back to my room, slamming the door shut. Outside, my mother-in-law threw herself on the floor, screaming and crying, why is my life so miserable? Raised an ungrateful son who married a shrewish wife, she won't even let me wear a pair of panties. Leaning against the door, tears couldn't help but fall. Before marriage, Ethan had doted on me endlessly, saying he would always stand by my side. But when it came to conflicts between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, he still chose to mediate. I took out my phone and sent Ethan a message, either make your mom behave, or send her back to the countryside. Otherwise, we need to take a break from each other. After a while, the crying outside stopped. Ethan replied, saying he'd talk to his mother, she wouldn't enter my bedroom again, and he'd buy her new panties. He asked me not to be angry, adding that his mother had finally come to visit and wanted to stay a few more days. He begged me to endure a little longer, promising to send her back once he was done with his busy work. Looking at the word, endure, my heart was a mix of emotions. Marriage isn't about supporting someone financially, let alone swallowing grievances. But for the sake of our years of relationship, I nodded, agreeing to observe for a few more days. To prevent my mother-in-law from entering my room again, I specially installed a small surveillance camera in the bedroom and bought a mini washing machine for my intimate clothes. I thought things would calm down temporarily, but I never expected this was just the beginning of a nightmare. To keep his mother occupied, Ethan signed her up for a night ballroom dance class at the senior center. Since then, my mother-in-law dressed up elaborately every night to go out, always returning with different bags, which she secretly took back to her room. She also spent hours on the phone in her room, laughing uncontrollably. I felt a vague sense of unease, but I was too busy with work, preparing lessons, teaching classes, grading papers. I teach English at a public middle school in Boise, to think much about it. Until Friday night, Ethan suddenly told me his mother wasn't feeling well and wanted me to take her to the hospital on Saturday. She's the one who's sick, why not you? I asked in confusion. Mom said she's embarrassed to have me accompany her. She thinks since you're a woman, it's more convenient. Ethan explained hesitantly. Alarm bells went off in my head. My mother-in-law had always been in good health, with a loud, strong voice. Why was she suddenly feeling unwell? And why specifically asked for me? I sensed something was wrong and decided to agree, wanting to see what trick she was playing. The next morning, I took my mother-in-law to St. Luke's Hospital. She hesitated and stumbled over her words the entire way. When I asked what was wrong, she couldn't explain clearly. I told her to wait in the lobby while I parked the car, but when I returned, she pulled me toward the West Wing. Mom, you still haven't said which department we're going to. I pulled my hand away. I asked, we can just go straight there. She didn't look back, clutching a registration form tightly in her hand. I looked up at the sign and froze instantly. We were in front of the gynecology clinic. No wonder she didn't want Ethan to accompany her, it was a gynecological issue. During the doctor's consultation, I deliberately stayed in the exam room. When the doctor asked about her symptoms, my mother-in-law hesitated and couldn't explain clearly. In the end, the doctor reached a conclusion through examination: vulvovaginal candidiasis, yeast infection. The result didn't surprise me. Since the panty incident, I'd noticed my mother-in-law had extremely poor hygiene habits. She always washed Ethan's socks with his clothes. After Ethan told her not to, she changed to saving up 3 to 5 days' worth of panties and socks to wash by hand, soaking them in a basin overnight. When she came back from dancing at night, she'd soak her dirty panties and socks in the bathroom, washing them the next morning. I told her several times, but she sneered, saying, there aren't that many bacteria, adding that in rural Idaho, they used the same basin for washing faces, feet, and clothes. No one ever got sick. The doctor prescribed medicine and repeatedly emphasized the need for good hygiene. Panties must be boiled in boiling water to avoid cross-infection. When my mother-in-law heard how much trouble it would be, she looked impatient. It wasn't until the doctor said, ignoring hygiene will lead to recurring infections, which will waste more medical insurance, that she reluctantly agreed. Walking out of the exam room, I quietly turned off the phone recording. Luckily, I'd had the foresight to record the entire consultation. Who knew if she'd falsely accuse me later? Back home, Ethan hurried over to ask about her condition. I handed him the diagnosis, and his face turned grim after reading it. I told him to go to the hospital for a checkup too. Since his mother had been washing his panties and socks, cross-infection was inevitable. My mother-in-law rushed into her room as soon as we got home, doing who knows what. Thinking the house might be full of bacteria, I asked my best friend to go shopping for disinfectant supplies with me, venting about my miserable life while we were at it. After hearing my experience, my friend was furious, calling my mother-in-law bizarre and offering to come home with me to clean and disinfect. When we got back that afternoon, we were hit by a strong smell of gas as soon as we opened the door. Hot air from the kitchen mixed with an unpleasant odor surged toward us. My mother-in-law never liked turning on the range hood when cooking, saying it wasted electricity. She also preferred keeping the kitchen door open, making the entire living room feel like a steam room. It must be Mom cooking again without turning on the range hood. I complained, frowning as I hurried toward the kitchen. My mother-in-law was standing with her back to me at the stove, giggling at her phone. Steam was rising from the pot, but I had no idea what she was cooking. I reached out to turn on the range hood. Mom, why aren't you using the range hood? It's almost 2 o'clock, haven't you eaten yet? At the sound of my voice, her body stiffened noticeably, and she quickly reached for the pot lid. I lifted the lid abruptly, freezing in horror at the sight before me. The pot didn't contain food at all. Instead, several wet panties were boiling in the water, emitting a pungent stench. Martha! What are you doing? I trembled with anger, my voice cracking. Ethan and my friend rushed in at the commotion. When they saw the scene in the pot, Ethan's face turned crimson. My friend covered her mouth in shock, stepping back instinctively. The doctor told me to boil my panties to disinfect them. My mother-in-law retorted defiantly. Boiling in a pot gets the temperature high enough to kill bacteria. After boiling and washing, I can still use the pot for cooking at night, no waste. You're absolutely unreasonable. I gagged, pointing toward the door. Ethan, throw this pot away immediately. The farther, the better. What a waste to throw away a perfectly good pot. My mother-in-law panicked, reaching out to protect the pot. My son spent money on this pot, who are you to say throw it away? Because you boiled your panties in it. I shouted. Who would dare use this pot in the future? Do you want the whole family to get a yeast infection? Looking at the panties in the pot and then at my livid face, Ethan finally realized the seriousness of the situation. He pulled his mother toward the door. Mom, stop making a scene. I bought you a special metal basin for boiling panties, why aren't you using it? That metal basin costs dozens of dollars. My mother-in-law struggled. Boiling in the pot disinfects just as well, why waste money? The two argued endlessly at the kitchen door. My friend helped me sit on the sofa, patting my back to calm me down. Watching this absurd scene, I felt nothing but endless disappointment. I couldn't endure such a life for a single day longer. Just then, the doorbell rang frantically, followed by the angry shouts of several middle-aged women. Martha! Get out here! When my mother-in-law heard the voices, her face turned pale instantly. Ethan opened the door, and several women in floral dresses, rolling up their sleeves, rushed in aggressively, pointing at my mother-in-law's nose and shouting, "You homewrecker! Seducing my husband and accepting his gold necklace and jade bracelets, have you no shame?" That's right! My husband hides in the bathroom every night video calling you, spending all his pension on gifts for you. You're a disaster. The women grew more and more agitated, reaching out to tear my mother-in-law's clothes. Ethan, my friend, and I hurried to pull them apart, but the women were surprisingly strong. All of us had scratches on our arms, and the living room was in chaos. Neighbors heard the commotion and gathered at the door to watch, with someone quickly calling the police. The police finally managed to control the situation when they arrived. After questioning, we learned that these women were the wives of my mother-in-law's dance partners. It turned out that after Ethan signed her up for the dance class, she dropped out after one day and switched to free ballroom dancing at a nearby park. She'd learned to dance when she was young, had a good figure, and was very outgoing, quickly becoming popular with the elderly men in the park. To dance with her, the men vied to give her gifts, starting with fruits and snacks, then moving on to gold necklaces and jade bracelets. My mother-in-law accepted them all without hesitation. After the women noticed their husbands acting strangely, they asked around and discovered my mother-in-law was the cause. They collected evidence of the gifts their husbands had given her, found out her address, and came to confront her. Faced with irrefutable evidence, my mother-in-law still refused to admit it, tilting her head and saying, "They gave me the gifts voluntarily, I didn't force them. It's not my fault, I'm a good dancer and popular." The aunties were so furious they tried to rush at us again, but the police stopped them. After mediation, we agreed to reimburse them the cash value of the gifts my mother-in-law had received, and they covered our medical expenses. However, my mother-in-law outright refused to pay a single cent. She threw herself on the ground, kicking and screaming, accusing the police of favoring the aunties. She even threatened to call her elderly male friends to deal with their wives. Ethan looked at his mother's tantrum, his face a mixture of utter helplessness and shame. Finally, he'd had enough. He dragged her back into the room and yelled, demanding to know what she really wanted. At first, she shouted back angrily, but it quickly devolved into hysterical sobbing. Ethan couldn't stand women's tears. The more she cried, the more agitated he became. In the end, he stormed out, slamming the door behind him. This whole fiasco made our family the laughingstock of the neighborhood. A crowd had gathered outside our door, pointing, whispering, and gossiping. I could feel my face burning with humiliation. Seeing me so disheveled and my best friend scratched up, Ethan finally relented. "I'll put her on a Greyhound back to Idaho tonight," he said. That evening, Ethan practically forced his mother onto the bus headed for the countryside. My friend and I stayed in a hotel for the night. We only dared to return home after checking the security cameras to confirm she was gone. The next day, I hired a cleaning service to thoroughly disinfect the entire house from top to bottom. I threw out all the bedsheets, duvet covers, and towels she had used. Even the dishes and utensils she had touched were boiled 3 times over. Lying in my clean, tidy bedroom, I finally breathed a sigh of relief, thinking the nightmare was over. But I never imagined this was just the calm before the storm. A week later, while I was preparing lessons in my office, my phone started buzzing incessantly. I opened it to find a flood of messages from distant relatives of Ethan's out in the countryside. They were all condemnations. "You heartless woman. How dare you bully our mother? A teacher should know better. Your private life is so disgraceful. Divorce Ethan immediately, leave with nothing, and stop holding him back." His sister even sent a voice message, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "Ella, I suggest you know your place and get lost. Our family has no room for a troublemaker like you. You're not good enough for my brother."